Let's talk Tanya for the 6th of Nisan. In the last few days, we've explained that God has a singular desire, and that is that we should do mitzvahs, and we should also have kavana. Those mitzvahs should be motivated by a love for Him and an awe of Him. At the same time, there are different levels of revelation of godliness when we do a mitzvah with kavana, or we do a mitzvah without kavana, with the intent or without the spiritual intent. And we also said that really it subdivides into 4 categories. And this parallels the fact that in the world also there are 4 different categories: doimim, tzemeach, chayim, medaber, which is the inanimate, vegetation, the animal kingdom, and human beings. And the reason why that there are 4 different categories in creation is because everything comes from the 4 letters of God's name. The same thing also, paralleling that, is the fact that there are 4 different types of mitzvahs with 4 different levels of energy. Just like in the 4 categories in creation, each one is unique in that it has a different level of divine energy, and that's because the mitzvahs also come from the 4 letters of God's name. So there are those mitzvahs that are on the level of the inanimate, those mitzvahs that are on the level of vegetation, those mitzvahs on the level of the animal, and those mitzvahs that are on the level of the human being. So let's start from the bottom. The lowest mitzvah is the act of a mitzvah which is done without any kavana, without any intent whatsoever. That is a mitzvah which is on the level of a doimim, the inanimate. That's like a rock mitzvah. And just like in a rock, there's a very small level, a low voltage of divine energy, the amount of godliness that is revealed in a mitzvah act without any intent whatsoever is on the lowest level. The next level is a mitzvah which is a speech-related mitzvah. So a person said something, a person davened, a person prayed, a person studied Torah, a person said a blessing, and even if you had in mind the meaning of the words, but there was no kavana, meaning it wasn't motivated by a love for God and an awe for God, so that is compared to tzemeach, to vegetation. You can't compare that to a physical act like affixing a mezuzah, because a physical act has no spiritual content to it whatsoever, as opposed to when we speak, as we know. When we speak, we reveal the spiritual within us, we reveal our thoughts and our feelings. So even though speech is an act, it's moving of the lips, but nevertheless, it has more energy than just an action mitzvah. But both of these, because essentially they are actions, we're talking here about the act of a mitzvah and the act of speaking. So these are both on the level of guf, on the level of body. And then you have 2 levels of mitzvah, both of which are on the level of neshama, of soul. And that is when a mitzvah is done with kavana, but there are 2 different types of kavana. The lower level of kavana, the lower level of love of God and awe of God, is when a person leverages and taps into their innate love for God. What's called the ava mesuteres. We spoke about this at length in chapters 18 through 25 of Tanya. The idea that every one of us innately possesses a love for God and a desire to connect to Him. So when a person contemplates that love which they have and acts upon that, that is considered an animal mitzvah. Now, we're not trying to degrade the mitzvah. This is actually a high level of kavana, but the similarity between that type of mitzvah and an animal is in that an animal is impulsive and instinctive. An animal doesn't use, its brain is not the primary force. Its main force is its nature. And again, it's impulses, it's instincts. So when a person is using the love which is instinctive and inherent and natural to that person, that is a level of kavana, but that is a lower level of kavana, similar to the animal. The highest level of kavana is when a person uses their mind to generate feelings, to generate love for God, to generate an awe for God. This is a human mitzvah, because a human being is characterized by their intellect and their ability to make choices. And when a person actually uses their intellect and chooses to create a new feeling for God, that is the highest level of kavana possible, the level of the human being. So we have 4 levels of mitzvahs, and in each mitzvah, in each type of mitzvah, we have a corresponding degree of godliness that can be revealed in that mitzvah. And obviously, we're always striving to do a mitzvah on as high a level as possible. Now, we are going to continue this conversation about the different levels of mitzvah and the value of kavana in the following chapter, which is chapter 39. But in order to have a better appreciation for the value of kavana and the different levels of kavana on a mitzvah, we're going to need to take a little break, and we're going to have to talk about the different levels of Gan Eden, the different levels of paradise which the soul experiences after it departs from the body. And we'll start on that, God willing, tomorrow.